My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped both pregnancy tests into the marble sink. Two red lines, both of them. I pressed my palm against the cool bathroom counter, trying to steady my breathing, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Clara, Minjun's voice came from outside the door, sharp with concern. You've been in there for 20 minutes. I'm fine, I called back, but my voice cracked on the second word. Welcome back to Obsessed with Afro-Korean. If this story has you hooked, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. I've got another unforgettable story dropping soon. And while you're here, jump into the comments and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how global this community is. Alright, let's get back to it. The door opened anyway, of course it did. Privacy was a concept the Park twins had never fully grasped, not when it came to me. Minjun stepped inside, his dark eyes immediately finding the tests I'd tried to hide behind my body. Clara, he said my name like a command and a question all at once. Then Jay Hian was there too, appearing in the doorway with that worried crease between his brows that always made my chest ache. I'm pregnant, I whispered, and the words felt like they were being ripped from somewhere deep inside me. And before you ask, I don't know which one of you. Both, Jay Hian interrupted softly. He moved closer, his hand reaching for mine. The doctor said it was possible, twins. I stared at him. What? Minjun's jaw tightened. We had the paternity testing done early. We wanted to be prepared. He pulled a folder from inside his jacket, because of course he'd been carrying it around, waiting for this moment. Fraternal twins, one from each of us. The bathroom tilted. I gripped the counter harder, my knuckles going white. You tested my blood without telling me. The routine blood work from last week, Jay Hian said quickly. We had it analyzed, Clara, we needed to know. You needed to know, my voice rose. What about what I needed? Before either of them could answer, my phone buzzed on the counter. Maya's name flashed across the screen. My best friend, the only person in my old life who knew the truth about my marriage. The only person who tried to talk me out of this insanity 6 months ago. 6 months, it felt like 6 years and 6 seconds all at once. If you're loving this unconventional love story, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button because Clara's journey is just getting started and you won't want to miss what happens next. Drop a comment below telling us what you think about her situation. Would you have made the same choice? I pushed past both of them, ignoring Maya's call, ignoring their protests. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to think without Minjun's intensity burning through my skin and Jay Hian's gentle concern wrapping around my heart like a vice. The penthouse was too big and too small all at once. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan, the city glittering below us like we were gods looking down on mortals. Sometimes I forgot this was my life now. Sometimes I woke up expecting to find myself back in my cramped studio apartment above the gallery, back when my biggest problem was making rent. God, I'd been so naive. Clara, please, Jay Hian caught up to me in the living room. Just talk to us. Talk? I spun around and suddenly 6 months of buried feelings came flooding up. You want to talk? Fine, let's talk about how you tested my blood without my consent. Let's talk about how you two always make decisions for me, about me, around me, like I'm some kind of... We were trying to protect you, Minjun cut in. He'd followed us, of course. They always moved as a unit. If there were complications, if the genetics were complicated. I'm not fragile, the words exploded out of me. I'm not your mother and I'm not some delicate thing that needs protecting. I'm a grown woman who agreed to marry you both, who sleeps in your bed, who runs a successful gallery, and I deserve to be included in decisions about my own body. Silence crashed down around us. Jay Hian's face had gone pale. Minjun's expression was unreadable, that mask he wore when he was processing something he didn't want to feel. I shouldn't have mentioned their mother, that was crossing a line. You're right, Jay Hian said finally, his voice was quiet, wounded. You're absolutely right, I'm sorry Clara, we got scared and we handled it wrong. Minjun moved to the window, his back to us. I could see his reflection in the glass, could see the tension in his shoulders. This changes everything, he said. Does it? I wrapped my arms around myself. Or does it just make permanent what was always supposed to be temporary? That made him turn around. Temporary. The 1-month trial, I said. Remember, you promised me I could walk away if I wanted to. That was 6 months ago. Minjun's voice was dangerous now, that tone he used in boardrooms when someone challenged him. "You're still here. Because you saved my gallery, because I stopped myself, biting down on the words I wasn't ready to say, words I'd been avoiding for months. "Because you what?" Jay Hian stepped closer. "Say it, Clara." My phone buzzed again. Maya, persistent as always. Part of me wanted to answer it, to hear her voice reminding me of who I'd been before all this. Before the twins, before the marriage, before I'd agreed to something that sounded insane when I said it out loud. But I was also remembering something else. Something that started 6 months ago on a night when my whole world was falling apart and two strangers offered me salvation with the strangest price tag I'd ever heard. I needed them to understand how I got here, how we all got here. "Sit down," I said quietly. "Both of you, if we're going to do this, if we're going to bring two Bobbies into this mess, you need to hear the whole story, from the beginning." They sat, Minjun on the leather armchair, spine straight like he was about to negotiate a merger. Jay Hian on the sofa, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, giving me his complete attention. I stayed standing. I needed the distance. "6 months ago I was drowning," I started. "The gallery was 3 months behind on rent. Marcus, my business partner, had emptied our accounts and disappeared. I had eviction notices, supplier lawsuits, artists demanding their commission payments. I was going to lose everything I'd spent 5 years building." "We know this," Minjun said. "You know the facts, you don't know what it felt like." I met his eyes. "I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about calling my parents in Atlanta, admitting I'd failed, begging to come home, but that would have meant giving up, and I'd promised myself I'd make it in New York on my own terms." Jay Hian's expression softened. He always was the more empathetic twin. "Maya convinced me to go to the Harrison Foundation gala. She said I needed to network, find an investor, save the gallery." I laughed, but it came out bitter. "I wore a dress I'd bought at a consignment shop and shoes that gave me blisters. I felt like an imposter surrounded by people who belonged." I could still see that ballroom. Crystal chandeliers, designer gowns, champagne flowing like water, old money and new money mixing together, making deals that would never include someone like me. I was standing near the bar, trying to work up the courage to approach someone, anyone, when a waiter bumped into me. I closed my eyes, remembering. The champagne went everywhere, all over my dress, all over the two men standing next to me. "All over our Tom Ford tuxedos," Minjun added, and there was the ghost of a smile on his lips. I wanted to die. I opened my eyes. "I started apologizing, dabbing at your jackets with cocktail napkins, making it worse. Everyone was starring. I was sure security would throw me out." "But we didn't let them," Jay Hian said softly. "No, you didn't." I remembered the shock when Minjun caught my wrist, stopping my frantic cleaning attempts. When Jay Hian smiled and said it was just champagne, not blood. "You asked my name, asked what I did, and when I said I owned an art gallery, your whole demeanor changed." "You had passion," Minjun said. "Real passion. Everyone at that gala wanted something from us, but you just wanted to disappear into the floor." It was refreshing. "You invited me to dinner." I started packing now, the memory pulling me back. "I thought you were joking. Men like you don't have dinner with women who spill drinks on them." "Men like us," Jay Hian raised an eyebrow. "Billionaires, tech moguls, the Park twins who'd been featured in Forbes and Fortune and every business magazine in existence." I stopped in front of them. "I Googled you in the bathroom, read about your company, your reputation for ruthless business deals, how you were inseparable, how you turned down every investor and partnership offer that tried to split you up. And yet you came to dinner," Minjun observed. "I was desperate. I thought maybe you'd invest in the gallery, maybe this was my miracle." I swallowed hard. "I had no idea what you'd actually offer." The penthouse dinner? I could still taste the wine, feel the soft leather of the dining chair, see the city lights stretching out beyond those massive windows. They'd had their chef prepare Korean-American fusion cuisine, each course more exquisite than the last. And they'd asked questions. Real questions about my vision for the gallery, my favorite artists, what I dreamed about creating. "You made me feel seen," I said quietly. For the first time in months, I felt like someone actually cared about what I had to say, not about what I could do for them, but about who I was. "And then we ruined it," Jay Hian said. "Then you offered me $500,000. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Just like that, "We'll save your gallery, Clara, we'll pay off your debts, cover your legal fees, give you capital to rebuild." I thought I was hallucinating. "Until we told you the condition," Minjun finished. The memory hit me like a physical blow. The way they'd looked at each other, some silent communication passing between them. The way Minjun had poured more wine with steady hands while Jay Hian explained the impossible. "Marry us," I repeated their words. "Both of us, it's the only way we can inherit our family's company. Our mothers will require us to marry the same woman within a year of our 32nd birthday." Make sure you're subscribed because the next part of this story is going to blow your mind. The decision Clara makes will change everything, and trust me, you need to see how this unconventional proposal plays out. "I thought you were insane," I continued. "I thought it was some kind of joke or test or bizarre billionaire game." I stood up to leave. "But you didn't leave," Minjun said. "No, because Jay Hyun said something that stopped me." I looked at him, remembering the vulnerability in his eyes that night. "You said, 'We've asked 12 women before you, all of them said no, they wanted the money but not the reality of what we were offering. You're different, Clara, we saw it the moment you spilled that champagne, you're real.'" "You look terrified," Jay Hyun added. "I was terrified. You were offering me everything I needed and asking for something I didn't know how to give. Marriage, to both of you, it sounded like something from a romance novel, not real life." "And yet," Minjun leaned forward, "you asked us to explain everything." "I asked about your mother," I said. "I needed to understand why someone would write that kind of condition into a will. What kind of woman demands her sons marry the same person?" Minjun's expression darkened slightly, the way it always did when he talked about his family. "Our mother was unconventional. She grew up in Seoul, came to America with nothing, built an empire alongside our father. But she watched him try to pit us against each other our entire childhood." "He wanted competition," Jay Hyun added. "Wanted to see which son was stronger, smarter, more worthy of inheriting everything. He thought it would make us better businessmen." "But your mother thought differently." "She knew it would destroy us," Minjun said. "She'd seen it happen to other families, brothers becoming enemies, tearing apart everything their parents built. So when she got sick, when she knew she was dying, she changed her will." I remembered how raw Jay Hyun's voice had been that night, explaining this. How Minjun had gripped his wine glass so hard I thought it might shatter. "She made it impossible for us to split up," I said. "One woman, one marriage, one family." "She said, if we couldn't find someone who could love us both, who could see us as individuals but keep us united, then we didn't deserve the company." Jay Hyun's eyes met mine. "She said the right woman would understand that we're stronger together." "But 12 women rejected you." "They saw dollar signs," Minjun said bluntly. "They liked the idea of being wealthy, of having access to our resources. But when it came to the actual reality, being intimate with both of us, building a life with 2 husbands, dealing with the scrutiny and the judgment, they couldn't do it." I'd sat back down that night, my mind racing. The logical part of me screamed to run. The desperate part of me calculated exactly how much I needed to save the gallery, and some part I didn't want to examine too closely, wondered what it would be like. "I told you I needed time to think." "You said you needed 3 days," Jay Hyun smiled slightly. "You called us after 2. Maya talked sense into me or out of me, I'm still not sure which." I could hear her voice in my head, half shocked and half laughing. "Girl, are you actually considering this?" I called and said I wanted to meet again, without the wine, without the penthouse, somewhere neutral. "The coffee shop in Soho," Minjun recalled. "I needed to see you as real people, not just billionaire saviors. I needed to understand what you actually wanted from me." I'd prepared a whole list of questions, written them in my notebook like I was conducting a business negotiation. I asked about sleeping arrangements. "And we told you we'd never force anything," Jay Hyun said. "That you'd have your own room, your own space for as long as you needed." I asked about the prenup. "We'd already had one drafted," Minjun confirmed. "Protecting your interests as much as ours, you'd keep the gallery, keep any assets you acquired. If you chose to leave, you'd leave with security." I asked about love. That question had been the hardest. I asked if you expected me to love you both or if this was just a business arrangement. The silence that had followed that question, the way they'd looked at each other again, that twin communication I still couldn't fully read. I told you we hoped for love, Jay Hian said quietly, but we'd settle for mutual respect and genuine partnership. We wanted someone who could be real with us. And I asked why me, why the broke gallery owner who spilled champagne on you? Because you didn't see us as the Park twins, Minjun answered. You saw us as two men who were asking for something impossible. You were honest about your fear, your confusion, your desperation. No games, no manipulation, just truth. I'd gone home that night and stared at my eviction notice, at the lawsuit papers, at my bank account with its pathetic balance. I'd thought about 5 years of work disappearing, about Marcus's betrayal, about how tired I was of fighting alone. I called you the next morning and said yes, but with conditions. The 1-month trial, Minjun nodded. I'd marry you both, I'd move into the penthouse, I'd try to make this work, but after 30 days, if I wanted out, you'd let me go, quietly, with the gallery saved and no strings attached. I'd needed that escape hatch, that knowledge I wasn't trapped. We agreed immediately, Jay Hian said. Too immediately, it made me suspicious. I smiled slightly. I thought maybe you were so desperate you'd agree to anything. We were desperate, Minjun admitted. We had 2 months left before our 32nd birthday. If we didn't marry by then, our uncle Sangho would take control of the company and liquidate everything our mother built. We were running out of time. The wedding had been small. A judge's office, Maya as my witness, the twins' lawyer as theirs. I'd worn a cream dress from my closet, nothing special. They'd worn matching navy suits. The whole thing took 20 minutes. I cried in the bathroom afterwards, I confessed. Maya held me while I sobbed because I felt like I'd just sold myself. Jay Hian flinched, Clara. But then we came back here to the penthouse and you'd done something I wasn't expecting. I looked at both of them. You'd converted the spare bedroom into an art studio. You'd filled it with canvases and paints and the exact easel I'd mentioned loving when I was in college. You'd framed some of my favorite pieces from the gallery and hung them on the walls. We wanted you to have a space that was yours, Jay Hian explained. Something that reminded you of who you were before all this. If you're wondering how Clara goes from a business arrangement to actually falling for these twins, keep watching because the next part takes us to their honeymoon where everything changes. You won't believe what happens next, so don't click away now. That gesture broke something open in me, I admitted. I'd been holding myself so rigid, protecting myself from you both, but you'd actually listened. You'd paid attention to the small things I'd said and cared enough to act on them. We wanted you to be happy, Minjun said simply. I started to think maybe this could work, maybe I could keep it professional, friendly, but detached. I laughed at my own naivety. Then you suggested the honeymoon. Jeju Island, Jay Hian's voice went soft, our mother's favorite place. You said it was private, that we could get to know each other without the pressure of New York, without work, without anyone watching. I'd been terrified. A week alone with both of them on a private island felt like crossing a line I wasn't ready to cross. But I agreed because part of me wanted to understand you, wanted to see who you were when you weren't being the Park twins, tech moguls, businessmen. The flight over had been surreal. Private jet, champagne, I was too nervous to drink, the two of them flanking me like guards and companions all at once. But when we'd landed, when I'd seen the traditional Korean house they owned overlooking the ocean, something had shifted. You cooked for me the first night, I said to Jay Hian. Galbi and kimchi jjigae and banchan, you explained each dish, told me about your mother teaching you to cook, how food was love in your family. You cried when you tasted the jjigae, he remembered. It was the first home-cooked meal I'd had in months, maybe years. I'd sat at their table, tasting food made with care and felt something crack inside my chest. And Minjun, you told me about growing up here, about summers spent fishing with your mother, about how she'd bring you and Jay Hian to this island whenever your father got too intense. She said Jeju was where we could remember who we were, Minjun said. Not heirs, not competitors, just brothers. You took me to the beach at sunset that second day, showed me the rocks where you used to play as kids. I could still feel the wind on my face, the salt in the air, the way they'd walked on either side of me like it was the most natural thing in the world. Jay Hian picked up shells and told me their Korean names. Minjun skipped stones and actually laughed, really laughed for the first time since I'd met him. You asked about our mother's will again that night, Jay Hian said. I needed to understand her thinking, needed to know if she'd been cruel or wise. We'd sat on the porch, drinking soju, the ocean crashing below us. You told me she'd written us each a letter to be opened only after we were married. She knew we'd struggle with her condition, Minjun said. She knew it seemed impossible, but she trusted we'd find the right person eventually. What did the letters say? They exchanged that look again. The twin language I was starting to understand meant they were deciding whether to share something vulnerable. Mine said, "Find a woman who sees both of you as whole people, not halves of a unit," Jay Hian said quietly. "Someone who understands that love multiplies, it doesn't divide." Mine said, "Don't settle for someone who tolerates your bond, find someone who celebrates it. Someone who makes you both better, not because she completes you but because she challenges you to complete yourselves." Minjun's voice was rough. I'd started crying then, sitting on that porch in Jeju, realizing their mother had been protecting something beautiful, not creating something twisted. She'd wanted them to find someone who understood that their connection wasn't competition for her affection, it was the foundation for something bigger. "You held my hand," I said to Jay Hian, "and you didn't let go." "You didn't pull away," he countered. I was starting to feel something I wasn't supposed to feel, something that scared me more than the marriage, more than the money, more than any of it. I looked at both of them. I was starting to care. That third night in Jeju had been the turning point. Jay Hian had played the gyeogeum after dinner, the traditional Korean instrument filling the house with haunting melodies. I'd sat mesmerized, watching his fingers move across the strings, seeing the emotion on his face. "You played that song your mother loved," I said, "the one about the wind and the sea." "And you cried again," he smiled. "I was worried I'd upset you. You'd made me feel something beautiful, that's different." When he'd finished playing, he'd set the instrument aside and looked at me with such tenderness I'd forgotten how to breathe. "You asked if you could kiss me." "I needed your permission," Jay Hian said. "I needed to know it's what you wanted, not what you felt obligated to do." I said yes. The memory of that kiss still made my skin warm, gentle at first, questioning, and then deeper when I'd responded. My first real kiss with either of them, and it had felt like falling and flying all at once. "And Minjun, you'd been watching from the doorway." "I almost left," he admitted, "almost gave you that moment alone with him. But I called you over." I remembered finding my voice, finding my courage. I said, "Don't go, please don't go." "You took my hand," Minjun said. "You pulled me down to sit with you both. Because I realized something in that moment. I didn't want just one of you, I didn't want to choose, I wanted—" I stopped, the words still hard even now. "I wanted both of you, I wanted this strange, impossible thing we were building." "We made love that night," Jay Hian said softly, "all three of us for the first time. It wasn't just physical," I needed them to understand. "It was emotional, it was vulnerable, it was terrifying and perfect, and I cried after because I'd never felt so seen, so wanted, so completely overwhelmed by feeling." "You held me between you," I continued, the memory still vivid. Jay Hian whispered that I was beautiful, that I was theirs if I wanted to be, and Minjun, you kissed my tears and said, "We've got you, Clara, we'll always have you." "You fell asleep in our arms," Minjun said. "And I stayed awake all night watching you breathe, terrified you'd wake up and regret everything." But I didn't. I'd woken up to sunlight streaming through the windows, tangled between them, and for the first time in years I'd felt safe. I woke up and thought, this is home. Not the house, not the island, you, both of you. The rest of the week was different, Jay Hian said. Because I'd stopped fighting it, stopped pretending this was just business. We'd spent those days exploring the island, swimming in hidden coves, making love in the afternoon like we had all the time in the world. You taught me Korean phrases. Minjun made me laugh with stories about your disastrous attempts at dating before the will, Jay Hyun sang while we cooked together. You told us about your childhood in Atlanta, Minjun recalled. About your parents' expectations, about choosing art over the practical career they wanted for you, about feeling like you had to prove something. And you both said I didn't have to prove anything to you, that you chose me exactly as I was. I'd cried again because nobody had ever said that to me before. When we flew back to New York, I wasn't the same person who'd left. The 1-month trial had 2 weeks left, but I already knew I wasn't leaving. You told us the day we got back, Jay Hyun smiled. We'd barely walked through the door and you said, I'm staying, I'm all in. Because I'd fallen in love with you. There, I'd said it out loud in the present, not just in the past. Both of you, completely terrifyingly. I fell in love with Minjun's intensity and protectiveness, the way he'd wake up early just to make me coffee the way I liked it. I fell in love with Jay Hian's gentleness and creativity, the way he'd leave little notes around the apartment telling me I was beautiful or talented or strong. And we fell in love with you, Minjun said roughly. With your passion for art, your resilience, your refusal to be anything but authentic. With the way you challenged us, called us on our bullshit, made us laugh. The gallery reopened a month later, I continued. You both came to the opening, stood in the back watching me give my speech about new beginnings and second chances, and I could feel your pride from across the room. Maya pulled us aside that night, Jay Hian laughed. Told us if we ever hurt you, she'd destroy us, billionaires or not. She's protective? I smiled, thinking about my best friend's fierce loyalty. But she also told me later that she'd never seen me happier, that whatever we had, it was real. And it has been real, Minjun said. Every day for 6 months, coming home to you, waking up with you, building a life with you. The memories had brought us full circle back to this moment. The pregnancy tests on the bathroom counter, the twins in front of me, the future suddenly very, very real. So yes, I said finally, I'm pregnant with your children, with both your children. And I'm terrified because I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be a mother to twins, how to raise children in this unconventional family, how to explain to them that they have 2 fathers who love each other as brothers and love me as their wife. We'll figure it out, Jay Hian stood, crossing to me, together. But you tested my blood without asking me first. I needed them to understand. You made decisions about my body, about our bobbies, without including me, and that can't happen, not now, not ever. If we're going to raise children together, if we're going to make this marriage real and lasting, you have to see me as an equal partner, not someone to protect or manage, but someone to trust. You're right, Minjun stood too, and the mask was gone, raw emotion showed on his face. We were scared and we handled it wrong. We thought we were protecting you, but we were really protecting ourselves from having to face the fear of what this means. What does it mean? I asked. It means we're not just husbands anymore, Jay Hian said. We're going to be fathers. It means our family is growing and everything is about to change. It means we need you more than ever, Minjun added, not just as our wife but as the mother of our children, as the woman who's going to help us navigate this next chapter. Before you go, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling us what you think Clara should do next. Because this story is far from over, and the challenges ahead are going to test this unconventional family in ways they never imagined. I looked at both of them, these 2 men who'd saved me and challenged me and loved me in ways I'd never expected. I need you to promise me something, I said. Promise me that we make all the big decisions together from now on. No more surprises, no more protecting me from information I deserve to have. We're partners, real partners. I promise, Jay Hian said immediately. I promise, Minjun echoed. I took a deep breath and placed my hand over my stomach where 2 tiny lives were growing. Then I guess we're doing this, we're having bobbies, 2 of them. Jay Hian's face broke into the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. We're having bobbies. Minjun moved closer, his hand covering mine on my stomach. Our sons. How do you know they're boys? I asked. The genetic testing, he admitted. I'm sorry, I should have. It's okay, and surprisingly it was. Boys were having boys. Twin boys, Jay Hian corrected, his hand joining ours, just like us. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. Their mother's legacy continuing in the next generation. 2 brothers who would grow up knowing love wasn't finite, that family could look different than tradition dictated, that the bond between twins was something sacred.